Happy Friday, everyone. All right, I have a question for you. Have you ever read a scene where a character is devastated or super, super angry, and you read the scene and you're like, okay, noted, and then you just kept going? So what happened there is instead of you feeling the emotion, the author probably just told you that this character was devastated or angry. And that's a problem because you as the reader didn't feel it. So today, what I'd like to talk to you about is that how to write character emotions so that the reader feels it and isn't just intellectually, they don't know that the character has had the emotion, but they actually feel it along with your character.
You have a story to tell, but you don't know where to start. Let me show you how to free your story. I teach you how to write and how to dig deep in your soul to release your story and make a difference in the world.
All right, I'd like to welcome you to the Julia Month channel. Thank you for being here with me on Friday so that I can share some of my writing tips with you. I really love doing that. So please like my channel either now or before you leave. Subscribe to my channel, come back on every Friday. And so let's get started. So what we want to do when we are writing character emotions is move beyond my character was happy or sad or furious or all the things that characters feel. We don't want those labels. We don't want to say how they feel. Again, we want the reader to feel it. So the first thing we want to do then is think about what are those physical reactions that we have when we feel whatever emotion. So if we are angry, if we are sad, then what happens to us? What happens to our body? What happens to our inside our head? What are we thinking? What are we feeling? What happens to our breath? All of those physical reactions, things that happen when you have an emotion, that's what you want to share with your reader. You don't want to tell them that the character is sad, but you want to tell them how the character is feeling, because when you do that, the reader will also feel that. You know how when somebody yawns, you feel like yawning? When you read about somebody having a physical reaction, your body tends to mimic that, and you're going to feel the same thing the character is feeling. So let's compare this, okay? If I say, Sally was sad or Sally was brokenhearted. Okay, you're like, all right, she's sad, she's brokenhearted, right? But if I say instead, her throat tightened and she couldn't seem to swallow past that painful lump. Okay, better, right? So now you're actually hearing what the reaction was. Now that could be one way of feeling sadness or devastation. There could be other ways, but how is it that you feel when you are super sad, when you hear something that you feel like crying? What happens in your body? And that's what you want to write down. And you do want to be careful, though, not to resort to cliches. So like somebody who's scared, her heart, what do people usually write? Like her heart pounded, right? But we read this a lot. So even though that is a physical reaction, can you say it differently? So here's what I wrote instead of her heart pounded. Her stomach clenched with each footstep behind her. It was as if all the blood in her body had repositioned to her heart and limbs to help her escape. Okay, so we are, again, feeling what's happened. We're telling the reader how it felt to her, because instead of saying her heart pumped, yeah, if the blood is repositioning to her heart, or she could feel like the blood going to her limbs so she could run, or her heart, you're imagining it as the reader that her heart is probably beating faster. I don't have to tell you that. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Avoid the cliches, think of new ways of saying something, and think of how physically you can describe the emotion. So that's the first thing. All right, the second tip is that you want to anchor those emotions in sensory details. Okay, so we're going to think about our senses and how can we describe things using our senses. So for example, if you've ever lost someone that was close to you, whether it was a person or a pet or even a dream job or something that a loss, right? Then how did life seem to you? Maybe it seemed like colorless, like there was no music. You couldn't hear any music. You couldn't enjoy music. Life was just had no sensory, maybe no color, right? The opposite, let's say that you felt in love, then how did life feel then? Like opposite, right? Everything you heard everything. You heard the birds tweeting in the trees. Life seemed just more vivid, more electric. You heard all the music. You liked all the music, even music you didn't like, right? It was like, oh, cool. This is, here's a country music song. Here is a rap song, whatever it was. You got into it even if you didn't like it because life was wonderful, right? You were happy. So think of adding those sensory details to your story when you are describing the emotions that the character is having. Those sensory details are really, really important in storytelling because, again, this is how your reader is experiencing what your character is experiencing. So let's say that you don't want to go with some cheesy birds, tweeting, and your character is super happy, or or sad, right? Let's say that your character's mom passed away and they go home, they go to their childhood home, they're going to visit the parent. What is it that this character is noticing? Because this is going to help us with these sensory details to match the character's mood. Okay, so they might notice, let's say they walk into the house, it's empty, mom's not there, and they notice things like maybe a crack in the tile in the kitchen that she said forever that she was going to fix and change, and here it is there, it's still there, and she didn't change it. And what if she remembers being little and walking into the kitchen to get a bowl of Fruity Pebbles, and she was always stubbing her big toe on this crack that was just coming off the tile? Okay, what am I doing here? I am giving you sensory details, and I'm giving you very specific sensory details. She didn't just go eat cereal, she ate her Fruity Pebbles, right? So that it's anchoring your reader into your story, into the mood of the character by giving you these things. She stubs her toe. She could feel the pain in her big toe, and maybe that pain radiates up to her heart because now she's missing mom. So again, you could play with all this. You could write it, you don't want to be melodramatic with your emotions, but if you focus on specific things, you're going to avoid that. It's not just like, oh, she was so sad she just walked into the house and she burst into tears. No, probably that's not going to happen, right? And it actually feels more real, and it feels more authentic, and it feels we can feel it more by having her just remember a little memory or just notice a crack on the tile. Okay, so sensory details are important. It helps us to anchor into the story, and it helps us to feel what that character is feeling. The third thing you want to do is to let the character's behaviors and thoughts reveal how they're feeling. Now, human beings and characters, right, are not going to actually always tell you exactly how they feel. They're not always going to act sad when they're sad. They might go out and party. Why? Because maybe they're avoiding their feelings, right? Maybe they are just trying to bury them so that they don't feel them. A character might just sit there and zone out, might sit there folding laundry and really focusing on getting it just perfect. Why? Because they're dealing with this grief, or they're dealing with not thinking about this, not dealing with the emotions. Or they might have fragmented or spiraling emotions where they're thinking about everything, like everything is horrible. Oh my God, that the milk has turned sour, and I forgot to go shopping, and I didn't, and it might just spiral from one thing to the next because, again, they're reacting to the situation. So don't always deal with the emotion directly on. Like, it's not always, sad isn't always going to look sad. But we're going to know because of the way that you're telling us that the character is behaving, that they're freaked out, that they're sad, that they don't want to deal with the emotions, or that they're over dealing with the emotions. So depending on who the character is and how they deal with life, you want to match that, right? So you don't want to have a character who doesn't deal well with emotions all of a sudden show their emotions. They're not going to. They're probably going to try to hide it. They're going to try not to feel it. And eventually it's going to come out, probably. They might eventually burst into tears, but at first you want to show us who this character is and how they behave so that we can understand who they are, why they're behaving a certain way, and how they deal with their grief, their fear, whatever it is. Here's an example of Celeste. I never know how to pronounce her name. It's just NG. But it's from the novel Everything I Never Told You. And sometimes what a character will do when they're sad or stressed is they'll repeat something over and over again. And so here, this is what the character is doing. And it says, it didn't matter. She was gone. Lydia was gone. Lydia, who had never even learned to ride a bike. Lydia, who had never gone to a dance. Lydia, who had never had a boyfriend. Lydia, who had never kissed anyone. Lydia, gone, gone, gone. Okay, so it's kind of repetitive sentences, right? And that's how our mind works sometimes. So she does a really good job of showing how this character, what's going through this character's head, and how they are having this sort of repetitive, thoughts going through their head. And this is more heartbreaking than if she just said she was sad because Lydia died or whatever, right? You can feel it. You can feel how stressed this woman is and how sad this person is because Lydia's never going to do all these things that she should have done. So it's even more heartbreaking than just she was sad. Okay. Okay, the other way to show emotion is internal dialogue. So, what is your character thinking? And here too, characters can lie to themselves in some way. They're not going to tell themselves everything. They might just say, that's okay. Mom died. We didn't get along anyways. It's all right. I'm not really sad. I'm just going to, clean this house up, get it on the market and sell it. It's over, right? But we can tell by their behavior again that their internal dialogue is not matching the things that they're doing, the little things that she's noticing about the house. So the internal dialogue, you can say how they feel, but you can also kind of play with that. And I'm focusing a lot on sadness, but it's good things too. So let's say that a character is falling in love with someone. They might mask their feelings a little bit. They might not right away say that, because we don't, right? We don't just go up to someone and say, oh, I just love you. I'm falling in love with you, right? We at first we're like, we're not going to say anything. We don't know how they feel. So we hold back a little bit. We try to protect ourselves and to be a little bit safer. So compare these two lines here. So I'm fine, she said, smiling too hard and reaching for her keys without looking him in the eye. Okay, so she's said she's fine. Is she fine? How about this? I'm devastated, she said. Okay. Which one shows you that she's devastated? Okay. The I'm devastated, just directly telling you, or just saying, no, I'm fine. And then not really looking the person in the eye and grabbing the keys and leaving, right? That one lands better because we're seeing that the behavior is different from what the person is saying. So whether it's verbal dialogue or internal dialogue, it doesn't always have to match. And actually, it works better when it doesn't sometimes. Not always. Sometimes, your character can be really connected to their feelings and actually tell you, but a lot of times they don't. So, and it's a lot more interesting to the reader to see this, that the character isn't really being completely honest. All right, the next thing to remember is that you don't have to tell the reader everything. You don't have to announce every single emotion. You feel comfortable just knowing that the way that you're describing or setting up the situation, that the reader knows, the reader can feel the emotion, as long as you're using some of these sensory details and things that they're going to know. You don't have to say everything. So let me give you another example. Instead of saying tears streamed down her face as the pain tore through her like a knife, she sobbed uncontrollably, shattered beyond repair. So this is something that I might even do myself in the first draft. And then as I go back and revise, I think that's a little too melodramatic. It's a little too much. How can I change this? And then how about this? She turned away and wiped her cheek, her hands shaking. The pot on the stove had started to boil, but she didn't move. If she moved, she might collapse. Okay, that's better, right? I hope you think it's better. Rather than, the knife tearing her heart apart or whatever. We don't always want to explain everything. Just by showing what she's doing, showing the shaking of her hand, showing that she can't even get up to turn off the stove. that's going to, again, it's going to be stronger and it's going to show her feelings more. So we don't have to tell the reader everything. The reader already knows, hey, there's something wrong. If she thinks she's going to collapse just because if she stands, that means that this news was really bad. This was really bad for her. So learn a little bit of restraint. Don't always feel like you have to tell the reader every emotion that your character is having. Okay, the next thing we want to do is we want to watch our words. So we don't want to rely on adverbs and adjectives. I'm sure you've heard this before. Most writing teachers will tell you that. Try not to describe using adjectives and adverbs, but use the details instead. So an example here that I found on Jill Marie Landis's Lover's Lane. So there's the story of Carly. She has a little 6-year-old son, Chris, who had gotten lost searching for bugs. And she overreacts when she finds him. She's totally stressed out. She's kind of hiding from, her and her son are hiding from the in-laws, that she doesn't want to be found. So she's really, really freaked out. And so when she finds him, she starts yelling at the little boy and accusing the guy that she likes, Jake, of letting him go out and not, she's very stressed out. So after he's found, she says Carly glanced at Jake, because she's yelled at him, she's yelled at the boy, she's yelled at both of them. Carly glanced at Jake, saw him standing against the railing, arms crossed, mouth set in a firm line, as he stared towards the arroyo. So we know from his actions that he's angry. We don't really know if he's angry at her for yelling at him, or if he's angry at himself, but we know that he is angry. Why? Because of the way that his face is set, the way his body language is, right? So we don't need to use words, we don't need to use adverbs, adjectives, or even say that he's angry. All we have to do is have Carly look at him, and she could tell, and we could tell, that he's angry. Okay, so what does this all tell us about writing emotions? It tells us that we can be much more subtle than we think we need to be. We don't have to tell the reader what the character is feeling. We have to show the reader what the character is feeling. And by doing that, what we're doing is we're allowing the reader to feel it. We're allowing the reader to figure it out for themselves, which makes reading much more fun, and it makes the emotions much more authentic. And what this means too is that you have to work a little harder, right? So next time that you go to write an emotion, don't go for the easy, description. Oh, that he was sad, she was devastated. Work a little harder and show us what the character is feeling, what the physical sensations are. Describe the sensory details. Let the reader figure it out by the descriptions that you're giving. So I hope this has been a little eye-opening for you, that it's helped you understand emotions a little better. This was one of the hardest things that I had to learn myself. It was hard for me to know how to express emotions on the page. So I hope that this has made it a little more clear for you as well. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel, because that's the best way to help me to grow the channel. And also share it with your friends, share it on social media, and come back next week for my next tip. See you then.